Cider apples are a group of apple cultivars grown for the use in cider production, distinguished from cookers and eaters by their generally poor qualities for these uses, often because of bitterness or dryness of flavor. Some apples are considered to occupy more than one category, and so can be referred to according to context. In the UK, the Long Ashton research station categorised cider apples in 1903 into 4 main types according to the nature of the flavor components. For cider production, it is important that the fruit contains high sugar levels which encourage fermentation and raise the final alcohol levels. Cider apples therefore often have higher sugar levels than dessert and cooking apples. It is often also considered important for cider apples to contribute tannins, which add depth to the finished cider's flavor. Classification of cider apples. The first director of Long Ashton Research Station, Professor B.T.P. Bauer, chose tannin and malic acid percentages in juice to indicate belonging to one of 4 flavor categories, with the expectation that a balanced flavor in the finished cider would need some juice from a member of each category. Sweets. This group is low in tannins and acidity, e.g. Slack Margerdle. Sharps. This group is high in acidity and low in tannins, e.g. Crimson King. The high acidity, together with that from the bitter sharp group, can add bite to the cider. Bittersweets. This group is low in acidity and high in tannin, e.g. Brown Snout, Dabinet. The raised levels of tannin, which tastes bitter and is astringent, adds a bitterness to the cider. A certain amount of bitterness is expected in ciders of the West Country style. Bitter sharps. This group is high in both acidity and tannin, e.g. Foxwelb, Kingston Black. Other measurements taken of apple varieties towards use in cider include pH, polyphenol content, and Brix. Styles. Cider is made in several countries and can be made from any apples. In the UK there are 2 broad styles, one using dessert and culinary apples and one using special cider apples used only for cider production. In the US, the freestanding term cider typically refers to apple cider, unfiltered apple juice, virtually all of which outside of roadside orchards and farmers' markets is pasteurized to prevent bacterial contamination, which also kills off the natural yeasts which lead to fermentation. The specific term hard cider is used to refer to the fermented alcoholic variety. Historically, the flavors preferred and varieties used to produce cider have varied by region. Many of the most traditional apple varieties used for ciders come from or are derived from those from Somerset and Herefordshire in England, Normandy in France, and Asturias in Spain, and these areas are considered to have their own broad cider styles, although the many exceptions make this more of a historic footnote. Normandy cider is usually naturally carbonated and clear. Asturian cider apple varieties are mainly sharps or mild bittersweets, producing a mildly acidic cider which is customarily served by being poured from height into the glass to oxygenate it. In England, there are a number of more specific regional styles. The ciders of Devon were often made largely from sweets, the cultivars low in acid and tannins that typified the county's orchards. Devon cider makers also specialized in cuved or matched cider, where fermentation was slowed to produce a naturally sweet finish. Though such ciders were usually intended for the London market, and a fully fermented, dry, rough cider was preferred for home consumption. Some asset ciders, by contrast, have tended to be stronger and more tannic. Bittersweet cultivars, locally known as Jersey apples, were typical of Somerset, although the county's most famous apple, Kingston Black, was a mild bitter sharp. The West Midland county of Gloucestershire traditionally favoured bitter sharp apples, giving strong ciders with a higher bite of acidity and tannins. Neighbouring Worcestershire and Herefordshire also favoured acidic cider apples, but the growers also made plantings of dual-purpose apples to take advantage of markets in nearby industrial centers. Single varietal cider cultivars. Historically, ciders have been almost invariably made from blending apple varieties, and the practice of making single-variety ciders is considered largely a modern approach. Only a very small number of apple varieties are considered to make a good single-variety cider. These fruit are designated as having vintage quality, a term first introduced by Hoggy in 1888, and further popularized by Bauer at Long Ashton. It should be understood as referring to the cultivar's ability to produce complex and interesting flavors, rather than in the sense vintage is used in winemaking. Sweet Coppin is a sweet originating in Devon. Sweet Alford is another Devon sweet variety. Crimson King is a sharp, first grown in Somerset. Yarlington Mill is a bittersweet, named after the mill in Somerset where it was found. Dabinet is a bittersweet named after William Dabinet, and is from Middle Lambrick, South Pedderton, Somerset. Major is an old bittersweet variety, found in orchards in South Devon and east of the Blackdown Hills in South Somerset. Broxwood Foxwelp is a Herefordshire bitter sharp, probably a sport of the old variety Foxwelp. Kingston Black is a bitter sharp, probably named after the village of Kingston, near Taunton, Somerset. Stoke Red is a bitter sharp originating from the village of Rodney Stoke in Somerset. Although considered suitable for single variety ciders, they can also contribute well to blends.